course, we want to get to our phone calls now. We've got Mike in Arizona. Good afternoon. What's your question or comment?
My question is for Mr. Odell's attorneys, who I would like to say here I have a great deal of respect for just because of the work they're trying to do. We've had a lot of cases recently where people have been refused this kind of testing, and we've seen the courts basically refuse to take that last step before we make that irrevocable decision. And I guess what I'm asking is, it concerns me when I see people like Ms. Coulter who seem to trivialize the issue and simplify it as if there is no issue to discuss here. And I think Mr. Odell represented himself, and his attorneys are trying to say that, you know, from the very get-go, this trial did not get the scrutiny it deserved. And I'd like to hear what they have to say about what kinds of things they would have wanted to see done in the first trial to ensure that this decision was right if Mr. Odell was guilty.
Paul, how would you handle the trial initially differently?
Well, let me give an example. Ann has talked about Mr. Odell's pellet gun and the victim being bludgeoned with the pellet gun. I want to give you an example of the quote-unquote mountain of evidence that the state has talked about. The evidence at trial, Mr. Odell's former girlfriend, a woman named Connie Craig, testified at trial that she had seen Joe Odell with a pellet gun prior to the murder. And the state medical examiner testified that a particular pellet gun, the barrel of that gun, was consistent with the wounds on the victim's head. Now you have to understand where that pellet gun came from. What happened was that months after the murder, when Connie Craig was talking to the police, she suddenly remembered that Joe Odell had a pellet gun. No pellet gun was ever found in Joe Odell's possession. So the prosecutors told Ms. Craig to go to Kmart and see if she could buy a gun. She went to the Kmart, and when she got there, they said, "This is the only pellet gun we have." And she said, "Well, then that must be the one." So she bought that pellet gun, and that's the gun that was testified about at trial. And Ms. Craig even admitted during her testimony that the barrel on that gun, which was the piece that the medical examiner said was consistent with the victim's wounds, may have been different from the barrel on the pellet gun she claimed she saw Joe Odell with.
Can I ask a question? And this is just a premise, I mean, could it possibly have been a situation, because there is the overwhelming or the other evidence, I don't want to say overwhelming necessarily, but the tire tracks that match, the blood on the clothing, if the semen didn't match and we had new DNA testing, is the possibility that perhaps Mr. Odell did commit rape but didn't ejaculate, so therefore his semen wouldn't be present?
Well, I guess there are a lot of possibilities here, but the fact
that could be one scenario, couldn't it?
The fact that, I guess it could. The fact that there's no testimony in the record of any kind of expert testimony indicating that that might have happened in this case. But keep in mind, we're talking about executing a person. We're not talking about guessing and about speculating.
My God, we have a standard of no reasonable doubt, okay? So once you start talking about possible scenarios, you've already given up the game. You're already saying that there's a reasonable doubt that this man killed her and that he should be let go.
Yeah, but fortunately this isn't the courtroom. In the courtroom we have an adversary system and not 6 people all coming up with stories about how he must be innocent and bucking for him. I mean, I'm not even a lawyer in this case, and I know enough to think that he's guilty in this case, and I'd like to hear what the prosecutor
There probably isn't a prisoner in this country who you don't think is guilty.
Apparently the jurors didn't believe the attorney.
And who is innocent in this country?
We've got more callers from Virginia who I think would like to make some comment today about what happened.
You just make shit up. You do. You just make shit up. I'm sorry.